brings you the Lidingöloppet.
Hello and welcome from me, Tim Hutchings, to the Lidingöloppet race from Sweden. In Ludvika, a small town 250 kilometers northwest of Stockholm, you will find Jerry Johansson carrying out his training. Johansson, 54 years old, has run this race every single year since it started back in 1965. If you and your wife were offered a trip anywhere, where would you go? Bali, he replied. And if this trip just happened to be on the same day as the Lidingöloppet, what would you choose? Well, Lidingöloppet, of course. That answer from Johansson really epitomises the approach of so many of the Swedish people to this race. A 30-kilometre cross-country race for men, a 15-kilometre cross-country race for women. The total length of Lidingöloppet, if you add the 30 kilometres together year on year, is now 840 kilometres, and the leading time is 57 hours 17 minutes by one Jerry Johansson. Only 9 men have ever completed all of the events, 28 so far. This year, 1993, is the 29th. Well, that longevity of Jerry Johansson is understandable when you can see where he trains. Beautiful forests of Ludvika to the northwest of Stockholm. Off-road running, it's what all the physiotherapists and coaches will tell you now, is most gentle for your legs. If you want to get injured, run on the roads a lot. Damage your ankles, your knees, your hips. Well, Johansson's obviously had good advice over the years. He may be the Mad Sharples or the Ron Hill of Swedish running, but the man is virtually an institution. I'm happy as long as I can remain out in front of all the other 8 guys every year. It gives me a goal to go for. Maybe I'll manage 30 races, who knows. What do you do with all your medals, he's asked. Well, I put them in a sugar bowl when I come home after each race. It's so easy to lose them if I keep them in a pocket. Here they are.
Lätt att lägga dem här när man kommer hem. Man har dem i fickan och sen bara kastar man i dem här.
Hur länge hoppas du kunna springa Lidingöloppet?
50 stycken kanske. Nej, jag skojar.
In how many races in Lidingöloppet are you going to take place? Well, I hope 50. Who knows? No, I'm only kidding. This is the 29th one, and I hope to just finish it. Well, Lidingöloppet is a middle-sized town on an island just outside Stockholm. Stockholm, of course, the beautiful capital of Sweden, and traditionally this event is held on the first Sunday of every October. Athletes here from Estonia, Kenya, Tanzania, and of course Britain. Here you can see some of those elite athletes exercising. Indeed, 16 countries here from every continent are represented. Lidingöloppet, in fact, is a weekend of racing. It carries on over 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, over various distances, of course, for all the different age groups. But the senior men's race is particularly tough. 30 kilometres of undulating forest trails. There's Jerry Johansson getting ready for his 29th Lidingöloppet. Question for him is whether or not he can stay on top of the total time field. Just 8 other guys competing with him for that title. As some of those races get underway, you can hear the thumping of those feet as all those people pour past. 30,000 people, in fact, in total over the weekend, and almost 8,500 runners in this main race, the 30 kilometres for men, which gets underway at midday. The African presence has been strong here now for several years. Last year Benson Mazia won it, he's back. Before him, back in 1991, Boniface Marandi won it, another Kenyan. Before that it was Simon Robert Nali of Tanzania, and back in 1989 one Douglas Wakihuru won this, the Kenyan who won the World Championships back in 1987, the marathon. His time 1:36.10 in '89 was a course record. That's 1 hour 36 minutes 10 seconds for 30 kilometres. Well, no change this year, as in the early kilometres we can see Mazia there wearing number 1, formerly a boxer. Indeed, he once held the title of the Kenyan Post Office Boxing Champion, and in 1992 he won the World Half Marathon Championships up in the northeast of England. That's Mazia in the lead there from some of his teammates. Those teammates include number 19 there, Jimmy Muindi, 21-year-old, and Cosmas Ndeti in 4th place at the moment. The other man up there at the front with Mazia is Salum of Tanzania, virtual unknown. Well, as I said, this race has been going since 1965, but in many ways very little has changed. Certainly most of the course is the same, and so are the feed stations. Back in 1965 there were a total of 500 runners in this event. They thought that was a big number then. What a shock they'd get now if they could see 8,500 people pounding round those 30 kilometres of trails. The Lidingöloppet is often compared to the Vasaloppet race, another very famous event for cross-country skiers that's held over 90 kilometres. A lot of people at this time, back in the mid-60s, thought it was an interesting thing to run through the forests, but it did awaken interest for long-distance running in the Swedish people, and I'm sure none of these people at the time knew that they were beginning a great popular event. Might be interesting to remind people nowadays how unique this event was in the old days. And indeed, it's still fairly unique now. At that time you could hardly find any long-distance races. These are some of the gentlemen who ran in the early days. They had no modern, comfortable clothing. But, of course, time moves on, and clothing improves. If there's anyone who survived the development of the training and clothing and everything else in athletics and running generally, it will be Eric Bergman, the oldest participant in this year's Lidingöloppet race. He started running around 1920, this old gentleman. When he was 1 years old, he started running the marathon. That was the Stockholm Marathon. And indeed, his name now appears in the Guinness Book of Records. This year, he's just going to attempt the 10-kilometre distance. What tactics do you have, he was asked. Well, I'll go straight to the front and keep going. Here they go, the veterans. His first run in the Vasaloppet, that 90-kilometre cross-country, was when he was 79. When Lidingöloppet started in 1965, he was already 59 years old. And the day before the race this year, he was 87. Do you realise you're the oldest competitor in Lidingöloppet this year, he's asked. Yes, I know. Are you proud of that? Of course I am. Are you nervous today? No, not at all. I enjoy it very much. That is why I keep on running for all these years. Bergman is running for the in the class of over 60 men. And after 70 years of running, he has a routine. He's well aware of his limits. I will make it, he says, but at my own pace. What's keeping him going here now is that he knows he will be the first 87-year-old runner to finish this race in all the years that it's been held. The only threat, this short but very tough hill after about half the race. Well, here you can see Rick Bergman coming in, 87 years old, 10 kilometres behind him, and finishing with great dignity at his own pace. His time, 1 hour 29:56. That's around 9 minutes per kilometre. And that's a record for an 87-year-old man in this event.
Hur många år till kommer du springa Lidingöloppet?
In how many more races are you going to take part, he's asked. Well, if my legs make it, I'll be back, I promise. Finally, he's asked, do you want to meet the press, Eric? He says, of course. Good to see an old gentleman still game. Main race on the Saturday. This race was for the youngest participants, the children's event, and it's for young girls from 8 years up to 12 and a half. 450 of them starting, all of them very nervous indeed, and somebody, of course, has to be the youngest. This year is this young lady, Ulrika Bengtsson from Uppsala, just 6.5 years old. She's run a race before today of 1,700 meters, and she says she's practiced 2 days for this event. Do you know you are the youngest participant in the whole competition? No. And I'm the youngest in the whole school too. I have my birthday on the 30th of December. How do you feel, she says, about being the youngest? Oh, quite good fun, really. Do you think you'll get tired? Yes. Has anybody described the course for you? Yes, my dad has, and he told me to run the whole time, but to start very, very carefully. Well, all the warnings have been given to these youngsters. Save yourself, hold something back, take it easy, but just watch this. None of them listened. They all set off as though they were in a sprint race. And Lidingöloppet, who is in there, and 400 plus other youngsters, are just amongst 6,500 children who take place in the different races over the weekend. Well, quite a challenge this for those youngsters, and of course a lot of nervous parents out there as well trying to find their child in order to take a photograph. Reminds me of the National Fun Run held every year in Hyde Park in the centre of London. Well, a lot of them keeping going at a very good pace. And where's young Ulrika Bengtsson? Well, she finished 360th and got a very big hug from her sister after the race. Finishing at a very good pace indeed, young Ulrika. That's what it's all about, a family affair. She became quite a star over the weekend, young Ulrika, as she faced her second interview after the race. Is this your first medal, she was asked? Yes, it is. What will you do with it? I'll hang it up on my wall. Well, who knows, maybe a name to remember. Young Ulrika there. Bengtsson, the surname, remember that. 6.5 years old, already winning medals. Well, back to the senior race now. This is the front after 2 kilometers, and the Africans totally dominant. It's more like a Kenyan championship, in fact. Of the first 7 runners, even at this early stage, 6 are from Kenya. And amongst them is the winner of the race back in 1992, wearing number 8, Johnny Danielson. Some of you may recognise this young lady. This is Madeleine Svensson, former walker, walked in the Stuttgart World Championships this summer for Sweden, and become very popular in Sweden as a result of her walk there. 15 kilometres, remember, the women have to run, the men 30 kilometres, but that's still an awfully long way for somebody who's not really used to running. It's a very, very tough course indeed, the Lidingöloppet. A lot of undulations, and many people equate the 30 kilometres the men have to cover, for example, to a full marathon distance because of those hard hills. Well, here at the front you can see number 2, that's Anita Hakenstadt. Number 3 is Anne-Marie Sandell. Sandell there with the yellow gloves on, back in 4th place at the moment. And I think that's number 13 in the front there, Maiken Sorum from Norway. This is Karen MacLeod wearing number 5. She's from Britain, or Scotland to be exact. And McLeod here putting up a good challenge. She was a late entry to this race. Right behind her is the young Finn, Anne-Marie Sandell. She's only 16 years old, Sandell. Still a huge talent though. She was 5th in the World Junior Championships last year over 3,000 metres and made the final of the Senior World Championships this year in Stuttgart, placing 13th. Here you see her. She's broken away with Katriona McKiernan of Ireland, and McKiernan there to the right has finished 2nd in the World Cross Country Championships for the last 2 years. Probably started here as favourite, McKiernan, but Sandell very, very strong, and with a mature head and her shoulders, coping with the hills admirably. She went to the World Junior Championships of cross country in March this year at Morrabieta in Spain and started as favourite, but she actually had flu and finished way down the field. Well, here you can see her, Anne-Marie Sandell, 16 years old, breaking away from McKiernan and putting on a very good pace. Almost going over there. That was a really dreadful twist of the ankle, but she's managed to keep going. And indeed, the 15-kilometre distance giving victory to Sandell. Remember, 16 years old, winning here in a very good time indeed. Her time, 53 minutes 30, and 26 seconds further back is McKiernan from Ireland. That's quite a useful scalp for Sandell.
Oli se ehkä vähän, että mä tiesin, että katselin mä tiedän, että se on kova ja se oli just siellä MM-vasta toinen. En mä tiedä.
Sandell saying there, I didn't really feel my legs at the end. I need more training over this sort of distance. Number 8 coming home there. That's Magdalena Torsell. And we missed McLeod coming through in 3rd place there. Sandell winning then, McKiernan in 2nd, McLeod in 3rd, Lemertinen of Finland in 4th, Anita Hackenstadt of Norway in 5th place. Well, this is Svensson, the former walker, who is also saying, yep, I think I need a little more training in my legs. Now watch this. This is a replay of that twisted ankle. This stride now, she goes over. Can you believe that didn't damage her ankle? Sweden, just outside Stockholm, and this is a world-famous cross-country race, indeed the longest cross-country race in the world, the men's event, 30 kilometres. We join it now after 15 kilometres, and this group of Kenyans have broken away. 7 runners in the group. The fastest though, and the best, is number 19. That's Jimmy Muindi. To the left of the picture there, Muindi looking very, very strong indeed. He won the World Junior Championship 3,000 metre steeplechase last year. That's his great friend, Josphat Ndeti. Ndeti's brother won the Boston Marathon earlier on this year. He's wearing number 22. Here you see Muindi with number 3 alongside him there. That's Samuel Maritim, also of Kenya, who's relatively unknown. Beginning to break up here, this race, and indeed Benson Mazia has his problems as well. The winner from last year, the title holder, but he's dropping back and drops out at around 22 kilometres with a hip injury that was aggravated in a car crash earlier on in September back in Kenya. Indeed, only a week before this race, Benson Mazia had tried to do the Great North Run, the half marathon up in Newcastle in the northeast of England, and he dropped out of that as well. Well, this group getting right away now. Muindi there in the red shorts, and Ndeti in the all black. Number 7 there, that's Borsson. And number 40 coming through, that's Johnny Danielsson of Sweden. Great shot there of the Kenyans. Jimmy Muindi in the lead, and Josphat Ndeti right beside him in black. They're an interesting couple, these. They train together back in Kenya and in the northwest of England when they're living up near Southport, just north of Liverpool in the northwest. They're sponsored when they live in England by a local holiday camp, Pontins, who provide them with accommodation. They spend about 50% of their time in Kenya, training at altitude near their home, and the other 50% of the time either at their British base or on the circuit racing. Well, Ndetti, in all black there in third place, was fourth in the World Junior Cross Country Championships last year in the snow at Boston. He's a devout Christian, doesn't drink, and he's benefiting from that as we see them here at the finish. He's out sprinting Jimmy Mwindi as they approach the finish, and there's quite an incentive to sprint as hard as possible. The winner gets $12,700 US. This is only the second time there has been prize money at the Lidingöloppet, and the organisers say they will continue it because it makes for better racing. Course record 1:36.10 of Douglas Wakihuri from 1989 is safe. The winning time there for Ndetti, 1:37.29. Jimmy Mwindi there to the right was second, 1:37.30. And Samuel Maritim of Kenya third in 1:37.40. This is Johnny Danielson, who was fifth in 1:40.03. Ndetti here, the winner, asking what he'll do with the money.
Because I run for but I don't like money.
I run for myself, I don't like money, I don't think about the money, he says. Well, I know a few people who would disagree with that, because the Kenyans appear to be anywhere and everywhere these days, and indeed Ndetti and Mwindi do a great deal of racing on the circuit. Well, every cross-country race has its hill, but at the Lidingöloppet, a 30-kilometre race for men, certainly, it has a very big hill indeed. Normally it's called something like the Murder Hill, but here in Sweden this one's just called the Perch Hill. It starts about 5.5 miles from the finish. It's only a 40-metre slope, but it goes up for 300 metres and is very, very tough after the legs have already covered a long, long way. A lot of athletes in need of help during the race. And for the majority of this field, remember 8,500 in this main race, their target is just to finish the race. Five kilometres to go for these men, halfway up Perch Hill. And here's Jerry Johansson, one of only 9 men who has run every single time the Lidingöloppet. Says here he's having an awful lot of stomach troubles. I know there's only 5 kilometres to go, but half of it's up this hill, and I'm feeling pretty bad, he says. He started this race, the fastest man of the 9 that have run every year, if you add their times together, every single year they've run. His time was faster by 22 minutes than the next man. His main threat was Roger Antonsson. But he says, I think I've lost it here. I don't think I'm going to hang on to that first place any longer. Drinks, of course, very important in an event of this nature, just like the marathon. This is Arke Larsen. Now there's about 4 kilometres left. How did he find Perch Hill? How do you think? This was the worst I've ever done. Worse than you expected? Well, no, I knew this would be tough. It's my 13th race and I knew exactly what the course was like. But this was worse than ever before. I'm probably not fit. I haven't trained too well this year. You've got one more tough hill to do. Yes, I know what's coming. I'll have to walk the last part, I think. I'm not going to give up, though. I'm going to go to the finish. No doubt about it. Well, here's Jerry Johansson, reaching the finish line very, very tired. He found those last 5 or 7 kilometres exceedingly tough. His time is 2:36.13 for the 30 kilometres, 25 minutes slower than he expected, and he's a very disappointed man at this stage.
Har du någon koll på hur Roger Antonsson har gått?
Nej, men hon har gått bra mycket bättre.
Well, have you checked Roger Antonsson's time? Well, I'm sure he's done a lot better than me. I'm sure he's the overall leader now. I was the leader for 28 years, so I've got to be happy. How hard do you take it? Well, there's nothing I can do about it. I felt in the first 5 kilometres that it wasn't going to be my day. If you had missed a Lidingöloppet earlier before this year, would you have given up today, do you think, during the race? Yes, he says, after 5 kilometres I'd have stopped. But it was 28 years I've done this race, so this year's the 29th, and I wasn't going to stop. Well, Johansson there with a smile on his face because he found out that he in fact is still the fastest ever in the Lidingöloppet. After 29 times the event has been held, he leads by 3 minutes 10 seconds in his overall time. Johnny Danielsson was the best Swede, but Jerry Johansson leaves Lidingö as a very, very happy winner indeed. Don't forget, athletics coming up on Eurosport in the next few weeks. Next athletics on Wednesday, October the 27th, we have the Beijing Marathon for you. That's at 6:30 p.m. And then on Sunday, October the 31st, we have the World Cup Marathon from San Sebastian in northern Spain. That's at 9 a.m. continental time on October the 31st, 8 a.m. UK time. Hope you've enjoyed this Lidingöloppet race from Sweden. From me, Tim Hutchings, goodbye. A very successful day for the Kenyans. And Ndeti winning for Kenya from Muindi and Maritim, his teammates.